welcome back again to my channel, azizuddin.sani. So now I am in KL again, and also with me together with me guests. I think for many of you who follow Malaysian politics, probably you know already who she is. So I think, of course, before we start our discussion interview, which is the topic about Malaysian politics. First of all, I think better you subscribe to my channels and also put likes and also give us a comments about the whole videos. So first of all, thank you, Bridget. I think I need to introduce her first. Associate Professor Dr. Bridget Welsh. She's now with which university you are?
I'm now based at I'm now based at University of Nottingham, Malaysia.
Okay.
I'm an honorary research fellow at the Asia Research Institute.
Okay. Now I think this is a new thing for me. I thought she's still with the Italian universities, but now with the Nottingham University, I think it's good. She's back here in Malaysia. So I think we can begin the interviews. First of all, what do you think about the climate of our politics now in Malaysia? Is too much uncertainty, or still stable? What do you think in general?
Well, I think if anybody thought that transition in Malaysia was going to be easy, then I think they've learned the hard way that that's not the case. I think that for a lot of Malaysians, they're really struggling with the issues of uncertainty. They're not able to adjust to the fact that things are constantly, they're not sure who is going to be the leader down the line, what the different natures of political parties. So uncertainty has become a major phenomenon. Also, we see a product of that we're in an era of coalition politics. So this means you have to make compromises. It's not the same hierarchical relationships in the past. And this is also something new. And so these are adjustments in the political environment, and some people are comfortable with them, and a lot of people are not.
So, okay, the main issue that you touched just now is about transition of power between probably Tun Dr. Mahathir with Anwar Ibrahim, So
well,
you
I
see
didn't touch about that, but that's okay. I'm happy to do so.
So, do you think it's going to happen, with this transition?
So first of all, I think I was talking about transition as in the change, right?
Change
from the system that exists previously, where you had a same coalition in power from 61, almost 61 years, to a situation now. Now to the issue of the leadership transition contemporary, I think it's inevitable that there will be a leadership transition. They say the phrase where there's taxes and death, right? Well, I think in the Malaysian politics, it's taxes, death, and leadership transition. So I think we're going to see a product of a change. Now, that may come, the question is not whether or not there's going to be a leadership transition in terms of happening, but who it will be to, how it will happen, and when it will happen. Those are the three questions. Now, I think, all things being equal, the main contender still remains Anwar Ibrahim. I think over the course of this last year, his chances of becoming prime minister are less than they were a year ago. That still puts him as a front runner, because who are the other alternatives in terms of this process? The other question here becomes how, and I think all things being equal, Tun Mahathir is determining when this process happens, with the only thing being a caveat is his health. And in that context, and then and that means I believe that it won't happen until 2021. I think that there are process, and that necessarily is not a bad thing, right? I think that the election was, in a sense, Mahathir's mandate, and if it comes too close to the next election, then it's difficult for Anwar to establish himself separately. So I think he potentially benefits from a long transition in that context. Although, on the other hand, he's had diminishing returns in that process. And then, of course, the question of how is really important. And this is what's really changed this last year. And the how has become a lot nastier. There are clearly vested interests that don't want Anwar Ibrahim to become the next prime minister. And we've seen the reemergence of dirty politics in Malaysia. And of course, scandal is used as a repertoire against individuals, and this is a problem.
back to the earlier statements that you mentioned just now about the transition from the Barisan Nasional to Pakatan Harapan, and also now there are many criticism, against the government, particularly the performance of the ministers, So, do you expect this to happen when suddenly from 61 years we only have one government, suddenly change to Pakatan Harapan, and a new government where almost all of the ministers actually don't have enough experience to lead the country, to lead the ministry, for example. So that's why I think you expect, do you expect that criticism saying about they're not really perform, in first almost 2 years now they're in government. So what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think I would unpack a bit of what you said, and I disagree with some of your assumptions. I think the first thing to recognize is that we're in a more democratic era. Okay. So with the more democratic era, you have more free speech. So you have more criticism. Okay. So you have an opposition that's critical. You have people in civil society that's critical. You have people, even in government that are critical of each other. It was more difficult to be critical of your own government in the previous era because it was a less democratic system. And if we look at other democratic countries that have they all have their own problems, but say the UK or the United States, there's a lot of criticism of leaders. That's the norm in that situation. So I think we have to separate out criticism and recognize it's part of democratic space from the issue of performance. Now, performance is actually, I think, a very important issue, and I think you're correct, right, that there has been a very mixed performance. And so, some of that, in fairness, is a product of the global environment. The economy is not as favorable as it was before, and some of that is a product of I think less to do with inexperience. To me, I give more blame to the bureaucracy that is actually sabotaging this government in many different ways. Frankly, many of the other people had less credentials and less acumen, although that doesn't mean that there are not incompetent ministers and incompetent actors in the Pakatan Harapan government. There are. But what I'm trying to suggest to you is that it's not about experience per se, because a lot of those people that did before had very little experience. It was about whether or not the system was working together. And this is the issue. It's not just about the bureaucracy being resistant to change and trying to, I think, actively sabotage the Pakatan Harapan. I think what Pakatan Harapan has done is sabotage itself. And it's been very self-destructive in its behavior. They have, in part, that's a fact that they come from different places, so they see things very differently. In part because the politics of personality still and trust is a real challenge. In part because they have very different ideological views about race, about reform, about issues of religion, about the issues of the economy. And so, Pakatan Harapan, for all of its strengths and weaknesses, is more of an umbrella coalition that represents a lot of diverse interests in Malaysia, more so than BN did. And it's having a hard time working together, in part because the leaders don't necessarily help each other, but at the same juncture, it has a hard time working together because they also come from different perspectives, and it takes time to to solve problems, to reach compromises. This is inevitable in a more democratic system. All right, and this is and so it's a different type of politics, and that it takes adjustment. Have there been some accomplishments that the government has done? Yes. Have there been some weaknesses? It depends on where you sit. I would say absolutely. There have been the problems in the economy, the problems of educational reform, the problems associated with bringing about police reform, as many examples. The real issue is that there have been, I think, this government, not only has it been self-destructive, Pakatan Harapan, it hasn't communicated its successes to the public. It hasn't prioritized what it's doing. And so if people ask, what's Pakatan Harapan done? They'll say, no change. In that situation, well, it's not. The fact is that the current government in place hasn't shown that they've made changes, and that is what they have to do if they want to get more popularity, because they've lost support, understandably, and of course they've met even their own supporters feel that there has been a problem of expectations.
Before I come back to the issue regarding Pakatan Harapan, now we move towards the opposition, but Mufakat Nasional, PAS and Barisan Nasional. Do you think that their collaboration is strong enough, to probably in the next generations they able to topple the current Pakatan Harapan government?
So one of the big changes this year is that the opposition has gone from being very weak in force to actually becoming now a viable national alternative. So PAS UMNO is now won a by-election. I think we have to be careful not to read too much into the by-election. You can read my piece about the analysis on that. But I think at the same juncture, I would also acknowledge that PAS and UMNO have become a major political force. Now, what's interesting about the PAS UMNO dynamic is that to me this is really about PAS. It's not about UMNO. And PAS is the driving force in this context. It's a much stronger position than UMNO, and UMNO remains very divided. Anybody who thinks that the party is together just has to look at how many people stay around Najib and who doesn't. There are clearly two major camps, and I think the next UMNO party election, which has to be held in 2021, will be the mother of UMNO elections in terms of the party. So I think there are, what we see on the surface is not necessarily what's inside in that context. And I think the PAS UMNO alliance also is very much tied to leaders, and it hasn't necessarily crystallized. But I think that said, the opposition has formed. Now the question will become, will they run an anti-Pakatan campaign, on a racialized campaign? And if they do, what will be the impact of that longer term and national? I think that if they run a highly racialized campaign, this will be very destructive for the fabric of this country. And Malaysia really will face a lot of outpouring of capital. They have to genuinely include different actors if they want to be a viable and also long-term interest. Winning an election is one thing, winning a by-election is another. Winning a national election and moving Malaysia forward is something else, different altogether.
One thing I know that PAS and also Barisan Nasional and also UMNO, they play sentiments now, race, religions, in order to lure people to support them. But same time also, in order to win the election, using the Malay issue, for example, or Islam as an issue, will not win them the elections, because we have to remember the other part of Malaysia as well, like it's Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, so they have different kind of attention also issue that they play around over there, So how because I cannot see how PAS and UMNO can be able to become strong party to challenge Pakatan Harapan if they are able to get support from parties in Sabah and Sarawak. And at the same time, so we look that MIC and MCA also not so strong enough yet, in order to really garner the support of the Chinese or Indians in Indonesia. So how do you see this dynamic?
Well, Barisan Nasional is dead. Right. So the new model has to emerge, and we'll see how that'll develop. But I also think that my new book, which will be out next year, which shows that ethnicity and racialized voting is really only, accounts for maybe less than half of why people vote. So, and in fact, religion is not as a powerful a force as people think it is. Now, this has become the main issue. And PAS and UMNO using race and religion, to me, is a sign of weakness, not sign of strength. They can't use good governance because the corruption is so awful in the party. And PAS can't use the economy because they haven't really delivered on that, especially in Kelantan. I think a little bit more so in Terengganu. But I would say that you have a situation where this narrative potentially will be highly polarizing, and at the same juncture, it may not necessarily address the needs and the interest of a lot of voters as Malaysia moves forward. So I think that it's still too early to make long-term projections, but I think yes, they have emerged as an important force. I think that ultimately, however, Pakatan Harapan's success, it's their election to lose. The problem has been for Pakatan Harapan is they've been losing it, and I think a lot of that lies with their own responsibility.
Okay, so I got two last questions I want to ask you. The second last question is that we've been told that we are entering into a new phase of Malaysia Baru, new Malaysia, so on. and this new Malaysia be interpreted based on mostly on reform that Pakatan planning to do, institutional reform and so many things, So what do you think about this reform that they promised to us? Because it seems very slow, and also there's not many things that actually public being informed, about the reform. So is it also because of the lacking of them, or really they suddenly realize that they think that some reform that they plan to do cannot be really materialized or realized in this current situation. So what do you think?
Well, you've outlined four scenarios, right?
Yeah.
The one scenario is that they're being prevented from doing reform.
Yeah.
I've already mentioned sabotage.
Yeah.
Let's hope that the police, for example, allow for a complaints bureau to be developed. And this would be a very, I think it's in the interest of the police, because they become stronger as an institution with a sense of accountability. And I think there are many aspects of the police force in Malaysia that are very professional. So one element is sabotage. And stopping reform. I think the other is that there is a communication. So the things that Pakatan Harapan have done are actually not being communicated in any meaningful way. So people don't necessarily see, and they see this as one person, and this is not what is meaningful. I think the third thing is that the substance of reform is always going to be difficult. Because some people wanted different things versus others, and I think there hasn't been a clear prioritization connected to the issues of the communication. And I think that that said, I would also say that there have been some reforms, and I think a lot of the reforms in New Malaysia are not driven by the government. They're driven by the changing environment, where we have a lot more freedom to speak out, a stronger parliament, a stronger press. I think that these things may not be in the same model of the past, but there is a very different environment than before. And I think Malaysians are showing resilience. They're showing a sense of adaptability and flexibility, and in some ways confidence. And I think the politics, despite all of the name calling and the scandaling and the same old repertoires, people look, there is a growing maturity in Malaysian politics, and it's fascinating to see how many people are so sick and tired of this, the scandals, and they just turn it off. And that's, I think, a positive thing, because it should be turned off.
And my last question is, now we are getting towards year 2020. So what do you expect in year 2020? What's happened actually?
Belum ada wawasan. Well, I think that I think that 2020, hopefully, Malaysians will have more vision. And a little better vision. But I think that they already have good vision. They see things for what they are, and they have different perspectives of what's happening. I think next year, however, globally will be a difficult environment economically, and I think that this will have repercussions within Malaysia. There'll be continuing pressure on the leadership transition. I think that the Pakatan Harapan has to reverse its course. I think necessary to do that is an important cabinet reshuffle, kind of a renewal. I think Malaysians give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think that they need to find a way for that to happen.
Okay. So thank you very much, Bridget, Welsh, to be able to be interviewed with me for today, and also actually I want to say that I feel very privileged here because I've been invited to his home, his party, and as I'm a guest here. So and actually I want to also wish Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you very much.
So you want to say anything?
I want to wish everyone in Malaysia a Happy New Year. For those of you who are celebrating Christmas, I wish you a Merry Christmas. For those of you who are celebrating school holidays and enjoying the rest of your time, please have a wonderful holiday season. And let's hope that we move Malaysia forward in terms of looking ahead, because Malaysia is a great place to live, a great place to be. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you again. Don't forget to subscribe my channel, and bye.
So, Tambaru.
Okay.